Can we find the doctrines of grace anywhere else in the Star Wars movies? This is where I want us to think if there's some other spots. I think we can have a touch point with total depravity and only what you take with you. But are there other spots where we can find something? Can we find unconditional election? Say what? Anakin what? Right. So Anakin appears to be who? Chosen one. Does anyone know Kung Pao? What is that thing? Sorry, there's so many things in that movie, all right? If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. There's so many things. Swinging the chain, swinging the chain. Short ripper. Okay, sorry. All right. Say what? Oh, yeah. I am bleeding, therefore making me the victor. All right. I go, baby, standing up. All right, so check it out. Unconditional election. Anakin is called the chosen one, right? All right. And there's even a prophecy about him. Say what? Yeah, he seems to be virgin conceived. All right, now let's look at this, though. There's other times where the Jedi, when they're sitting around in the little Jedi beanbags, and other places in other parts of the canon where they talk about the will of the Force. Now, let's think about this. And Han Solo makes reference to that too when he says, there's no mystical energy field controlling my destiny. And Darth Vader often speaks of what? It is your destiny. Therefore, he's saying you've been predestined to do this. Now, they're wrong, aren't they, about the will of the Force. But how does, how does the Force have a will? Will is a function of what? Who has wills? Don't say a truck. Right. A person. Does this chair have, it's not a wheelchair, does this chair have a will? Does this chair have volition? Why not? Do mosquitoes have a will? There's a lot to talk about there, right? We could get way off, couldn't we? I lean towards a certain way, but nonetheless, I think once we get to something that is a person, it's clear that one of the functions people possess is to have a will, right? In fact, do you know, according to the biblical worldview, you can be a person without being a human? You can never be the other way, but check this out, right? God is three, but he's not. So he's a person, but he's not a human. Angels appear to be persons, but not humans. Angels appear to, at least prior, have had a will as well in some manner of speaking. Now, what does that mean as well? Because I think it's okay for Calvinists to say free choice. Free will gets problematic because people automatically kind of in their own mind put the word autonomous, or that's how they think about it, autonomous, when they say free will. But free choice, I think, is a biblical idea and goes well, okay, with compatibilism, I think, if you understand what you're saying when you say free choice. Meaning, you freely choose what you want to do. That's why we sin. That's what we want to do. But our will is limited, therefore we can write books. Great book, by the way, kid. Bondage of the Will. Martin Luther did that. So, I think you can find it when you get to this concept of chosen, unconditional election. Did Anakin do anything prior to being born to be considered the chosen one? No. And the Star Wars universe seems okay with the concept of chosen one, doesn't it? But how does the Force have a will? See, this is where I think, and this is from Timothy Paul Jones, to tell a good story, to tell a compelling story, you can be off on points, but you have to, at key points, important junctures, significant spots, you have to borrow from the Christian worldview to tell a good, compelling story. I think here, It's borrowing with this idea of chosen one. I'm not saying George Lucas is like, oh, Calvinism has this, therefore I'll do this. It's more like what works in a story, but notice that it's still there and it has an important function, and Star Wars, again, doesn't seem to have a problem with it. You don't even hear people saying, well, why isn't someone else the chosen one? By the way, there is a theory running around that actually Obi-Wan's the chosen one. Have you guys heard this? The Kenobi family, the Kenobi line. Go online and you'll see it. It'll trip you out. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the chosen one. Because even Yoda, doesn't he say, a prophecy that misread could have been? Yoda, if anyone could be accused of misreading you, probably you, backwards syntax. But in all seriousness, I think when we get to unconditional election, I think we can see chosen one. But is it possible for something that is not a person to have a will? No. In fact, you can use the dark side of the Force or use the light side of the Force. Does the Force have a say in how wielders use it? It appears not. It doesn't appear the Force says, no, Darth Vader, it's messed up to make me choke that guy. Don't do it. It doesn't seem like the Force has that as a function, but yet it chooses Jedi. And even, it's kind of messed up. You can see maybe why things that aren't persons don't deserve wills in the first place, because how does Anakin bring balance to the Force? It's really a messed up way that he does it. I mean, part of the process is, kill all the Jedi, all this stuff. So it doesn't even seem like the Force makes the greatest decision when it's given the chance. But how does the Force make a decision? See, it's incompatible. It does not make sense. Something impersonal that is a Force. I mean, it's called the Force, for goodness sake. Therefore, then has a will and can make choices and have a chosen one. Is that the only choice the Force ever made? You see what I'm saying? So, nonetheless, it's there. Now, limited atonement. I had trouble with this one. I wasn't able to find it. Does anyone see a spot where you could have limited atonement? Now, again, just so everyone understands, here's what we're doing with this. We are not saying George Lucas is a Calvinist making a Calvinist movie. What we're saying is, in our culture and in films, especially that focus on metaphysical realities, there are spots where you see Christian truth shining, and what we can do is explore those spots for a few reasons. I actually think it's productive to think on these things. I think that's Philippians 4. We're thinking on these things. I think tonight when you leave, you'll say, I can analyze things in a different way. I can go deeper. And isn't it a great question when you're sitting with a Star Wars buddy, Star Wars nerd, to say, how does the Force have a will? And to begin to talk about this. Do you see how this is a legitimate end to a legitimate conversation? Because the metaphysical realities are already being discussed in some way in the film. This is something we can use to converse with people if we know the systematic theology. Now look, if you don't know nothing about Star Wars, pick something else. I'm doing this because I know this, but there are a multitude of things we can do this, I think, with literally everything. I mean, if you enjoy fishing, oh my goodness, how is there not 1,000 things, ends you have into the gospel while you're with a dude fishing? Have you heard a really messed up joke, by the way? You probably all heard it, but someone hasn't, so whatever. How do you prevent a Mormon from drinking all the beer on a camping trip? Bring another Mormon? It's messed up, I know. But does anyone find limited atonement anywhere? Midichlorians, okay, help me out. I know, like, how would it work, though? Okay. So, yeah, the question, how are midichlorians distributed throughout a person, though? Like, how does that get determined is what I wonder. See, if that was also in some way the will of the Force, then that gets you close to limited atonement in a way. By the way, I don't like the idea of midichlorians. I think the original 3 movies had a more of a, there's still an aspect of awesome and wonder at the metaphysical reality that was the Force. Once you have midichlorians, it actually becomes biologically determined. And then it changes the nature of it in a lot of ways. So I have a friend who says George Lucas bought into modernity with the advent of the midichlorians. I actually think it's less compelling storytelling as well. But going on that, you might be able to do something with that in some way. It's interesting. Some of this is just fun, okay? My plan was to be the geekiest presenter at Reformed Con. Like to be the most connish. Because everyone else is going to be the most reformed-ish. I was going to be the most connish. You know what I'm saying? Irresistible grace. What about that one? You knew where I was going. You know the tulip, some of you. So you could already be thinking ahead. Okay, how do I find the next one? Let me sound cool, Irresistible grace? Destiny? Yeah, I mean, some of these concepts kind of weave in and out. Again, hey, the petals do hang together, do they not? So yeah, the P is my favorite though. I do have a little something for that one. Perseverance of the saints, or better yet, preservation of the saints. What's up with that one? Yoda says to Luke, once you go down that dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. He's saying, if you go here, it's forever. Forever means forever, Yoda. Was Yoda right? He's not right. By the way, watch the prequels. Yoda's not right really about anything, hardly ever, right? But he's not right, is he? Who's the counterexample? I can think of one. All it takes is one counterexample to offset a truism. Darth Vader. In fact, how do you know that Vader, we're going to get Roman Catholic here, died in a state of grace? Because what happens at the end of Return of the Jedi? He's part of the Star Wars Trinity, right? Anakin, Yoda, and Obi-Wan. The three dudes, right? He's there. Now, it shows that it will not forever dominate your destiny there. So it's kind of like Yoda thought there was a perseverance, not of the saints, but perseverance of the Sith. See what it did there? But actually, he was incorrect. I guess the Force is more Arminian. I don't know. What are we going to do with that? Really, what I think we could do with that is show that redemption is always possible. Because think about how it seems unfair. But what's the parable? There's guys who start work in the morning. At the end of the day, they clock out. They get the money that the master said he was going to give, the boss. There's dudes who came in at the last second, worked like an hour. They get the same amount of money. The dudes who were there at 8 a.m. start complaining. Oh, why didn't they get this? Hey, it's my money. I can do with what I want. By the way, that's a little bit of capitalism in the Bible. It's my money. I can do with what I want, right? He basically says that. I'm just saying. I think he's right there. You got to be careful with the parables. I still think it's true. But he says that. And he says, I gave you what you were guaranteed. There's some workers' rights to a certain extent, right? You got to keep your word. Okay. What is it to you? And what a lot of times Mormons say, so you're telling me somebody could be an axe murderer for 20 years, and the last second on our deathbed have a conversion, they'd be okay? The answer actually, of course, is yes. We have an example of a Vader-like moment in Scripture itself, in a sense, do we not? Jesus, where? On the cross. The thief. He deserved. But what does Jesus say to the man next to him? Truly, you will be with me in paradise. Today, he says, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. Redemption is always possible. And see, without that Vader redemption moment, the Star Wars movie is nothing like what it could be. He'd just be another Palpatine dead, right? But there's that redemption that makes it all the more compelling.